Basically, even in war, it's not allowed to attack and kill my civilians. But in the case of Palestine, we see even those who are deemed to be medically unfit zvipatara zvacho zvinobombwa. So automatically we move to classify this as a genocide. We also look at the settlement expansion, forced Palestinian displacement. I'll come to the issue and by the first speaker. People tend to use the scriptures when it best suits them. The same promise that was made to the forefathers peace was also a necessity. But in this case, we have got people who are trying to become moral prefects, or maybe if we can say they are trying to be more religious than religion itself. They claim to be adhering to the scriptural tenets whilst violating the same background that they are writing on. We also go to restrictions of movement. These three move to classify a genocide. All these things are happening in the case of Palestine. So we now have two things that have been addressed. The Israeli-Palestinian situation can be considered a genocide. At the same time, it's also a conflict. So what do we really have here? Personally, I'll call it a war. Now, when we talk of war, what is a war? Because basically, I cannot call you a warrior if you slap a 5-year child. You can't be qualified as a warrior. But if the attacks are maintained, you continuously attack the child, you continuously do it. I don't know what you deserve to be called, whether a human or something. In this case, we have Israel. It's popularly recognized as a nation. What makes a nation? A nation is made up of clearly defined borders. A nation is characterized by a government or a leadership structure which is clearly defined. Israel is all of that. A nation must have sovereignty. Our former president usually used this word, sovereignty. Meaning one is a nation in itself will have the freedom to self-determination. On the contrary, Palestine is none of that. They are a nation, but unfortunately they are a nation yakabatwa maoko akasungirwa kumusana against a nation iri kushandisa zvese zvainazvo. I once wrote an article yandanga pamusoro kuti Palestinian plight, all are accomplices. what did I mean when I said all are accomplices? The United Nations has got many countries which make up the United Nations. They meet regularly in what I may call a gentleman's club. They meet regularly, they debate issues, they proffer solutions which they do not even attempt to implement. The powers of the law lies in the power that implements anything. Simba remutemo kana muri muno muZimbabwe tiri pazeta rapi. The enforceability by the state is what defines laws. So we have the regulations are there. International law is not allowed you don't attack my civilians. You have civilians that are being attacked, the world is silent. PaUkraine pakanetsa hondo zvino apa. Pasi rese rakashaiwa rugare kana ari masymposium akaitwa kupfuura atiri kuita panapa. Kana ruri rubatsiro, assistance chaiyo was rendered and offered. But what are we doing in the Palestinian case? I really don't know. So, what could be the solutions? Personally, I have my own preferred. In 1993, we had the Oslo Accords. These were a groundbreaking agreement between Israel and Palestinian Liberation Organization, aiming to resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict through a two-state solution. The accord had the potential to establish a lasting peace in the region, but unfortunately, their implementation was incomplete and ultimately delayed. The key provisions of the Oslo Accords were withdrawal or redeployment of Israeli security forces from the West Bank and Gaza Strip. Secondly, the transfer of authority to the Palestinians over matters of education, health, social welfare, taxation, and tourism. Thirdly, creation of a strong Palestinian police force. Fourth, democratic elections for the Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza Strip. If fully implemented, the Oslo Accords had the potential to establish a sovereign Palestinian state alongside the state of Israel. Resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict through a two-state solution. Improve economic cooperation and development in the region, as well as enhance regional stability and security. We move to the reasons for failure. Lack of clear borders and territorial definitions. If I may explain on this, I will simply say lack of political will by those who were proffering the solution and the mediators. It's very, very clear. If you want to solve issues, there are things that you have to define.
5 minutes.
Israeli settlement expansion. Palestinian divisions. violence and terrorism concerns. These were basically the major reasons that defined the failure of the Oslo Accords. One of my favorite lecturers here in Zimbabwe, the problem with humans is that we rely on things that we realize that these have already failed. We re-implement those things time and again, expecting different results. This is basically the hallmark of foolishness. If we are to be sincere in these discussions, if we are to be sincere with the case of Palestine, if we really feel for humanity, we need to go back to the drawing board, address the reasons of failure of the Oslo Accords, and chart the way forward. I thank you.
Give us your sense.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Assalamu alaikum. And also to the speakers program. I understand very well that the power to fight in a men's land issues regarding Palestine, regarding Israel, regarding United Nations, regarding one thing that we were mentioned is Arabic. United Nations Arabic and the UN is about how they should move forward, how they should come together on this issue. Munona Tunungaro will say that this is a war in Palestine. But if you see a leopard and a goat pushing each other, I don't know to use the word to a fight, you can't call that a war. Because already the forces are different. I think we need to also start by addressing the narratives that are being used in connection with Palestine, in connection with Israel, in connection with some of the very deep, substantive issues that we need to understand is the issue of Hamas, it's the issue of the Palestinians, it's the issue of Israel, and the issue of terrorism. I'll start from Africa. At one point in time, Nelson Mandela and his ANC was regarded as a terrorist organization. It was the same with Moses Machel in Mozambique and Frelimo. They were terrorists. It was the same with SWAPO and the same in Roma in Namibia. They were called terrorists. It was the same with Jomo Kenyatta in Kenya. They were terrorists. It was the same with Humphrey Banda in Malawi. They were called terrorists. It was the same with Robert Mugabe, the Democratic Form in Zimbabwe. They were called terrorists. It was the same with Robert Mugabe in Angola. They were called terrorists. A lot of them were being called terrorists. But what is terrorism now? If you understand what these people were doing, we need to understand these terrorists so that we understand the fear when they are being regarded as terrorists and they are masterminding terror in the Middle East. Africa was divided among the European nations. At the beginning of the 1883, Africa was divided. You can see if you Google it, look at it, Africa was parceled out to European nations, Portugal, Britain, Germany, and so on. Zimbabwe was also occupied. Then we were occupied. If we understand that we were occupied people, we rose up through all our structures to defeat the occupation, we can then understand what is actually Palestine. It's not a religious war or a religious group conflict. because that division in Africa did not show the line of religion at all. The white people who came to occupy us did not talk about our manners or our African traditional religion. They only said, you are backward, we need to develop you. Like the leopard comes to the court and say, I want to free you, you're smelling, I want to make sure you're free, something like that. So our own forefathers, by forefathers, we are not talking about something that happened 100 years, we are talking about something that happened 45 years ago. My forefathers, they were information, also died in this. So I have to read very much. We were fighting the occupier who came to our land, drove us into mountains and trees, took our prime land, our cattle, and everything. We were put in mountains there, they called it a reserve, which means we could still come there and drive them away across me to the sea. I don't know. So terrorism is when an occupied person fights for liberation. There is no any other meaning. We were called terrorists. We understand it better. Gabi was a terrorist. Nagawa was a terrorist. Arafat was a terrorist. The Cuban leader was a terrorist. Muammar Gaddafi was a terrorist. Everybody is a terrorist. Why? We are fighting those who are on our land. To leave us alone. To regain our sovereignty, as my brother just said. Sovereignty means self-rule. You have everything you want to do on your land and you do it. You have the forest, the rivers, you have the climate, you have the rainfall. You have everything you want. This is Africa, and it's our country. Africa was one country before all this was created. And let's go back now to the second group of November 1970.